In today's episode, we are delighted to have Nikos Theodosakis and Sandy Wilson on the Tempest stage. These are two Okanagan film icons. They together practically started, or were a huge part in starting the film industry here in the South Okanagan. And I'll save the rest for the interview because it's so good. Wow, it is an honor to be sitting here with Sandy Wilson and Nikos Theodosakis. There is so much to talk about. We better drink some wine, right?
Let's go.
Okay, we're in the Okanagan. Why not?
This is from Elephant Island, and what's so charming is that Miranda Halliday, one of the owners, multi-generational winery, is so, as many of us are so in love, so moved by my American cousin for so many years. So when she heard that they were going to be sponsoring this episode, she was very excited. So this is Naysayer, which is kind of cool for you guys because they say with this wine, drink it in front of the people that said you couldn't do it. Yes. But don't give them a glass because it's just too good.
Ooh, yum.
So here we go.
Well,
Naysayer.
Elephant Island is across the road from where we shot our first day.
Jake's cheers.
I don't want you hanging around the Vickers while they're working. Go and see if you can help your mother.
All she does is yell at me.
Where's Jim June?
Cheers.
Well, cheers. Here's to the
Welcome,
Okanagan.
welcome, welcome.
Yay, yay.
Cheers, okay?
Cheers. Yeah,
Ooh, that's nice.
so good. I love this wine.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Nice. Good fruit.
we often speak about, the film business on this stage and the exciting things that are happening in the industry here in the Okanagan, and it would be silly not to include two of the Okanagan's filmmaking pioneers, which you guys are. So let's just start talking. How did you meet? What happened? Give us the whole story. Oh,
I have here, I don't know if you've seen this, Nico. This was my granny's suitcase, Marion Victoria Longridge.
I've not seen that.
You have?
I've not seen that suitcase.
Oh, you haven't seen
No.
that? And I brought some early stuff because in terms of filmmaking in the Okanagan, my dad was a guy who started it. And I made a film from his 16 millimeter movie footage
Right.
back in 1978. And before that, I did a film about my brother Brian here in the Okanagan. And before that, I did a film about Penn High grad. So these were all documentaries that we shot, and also Penticton Profile, which we shot here. And then when it came time to do my American cousin, I was having a little trouble getting the money together, had a brand new baby, and came up to the Okanagan and realized I wasn't going to be shooting the film that summer, and I was all bummed out. And my younger sister, Noni, was working at Theo's.
Yes. And you would come into the restaurant every day, table 6, and work on this thing, like it was called a script. And you had this idea for this film, you were saying to me. And I just gotten back from Greece, and I was experimenting with video and photography. And I was saying to you, well, I'm going to Vancouver to study film. If you need a hand with your film, give me a shout. So she did.
And on the wall at Theo's, you had your wonderful poster for your film, Yanni Schwartz, Portrait of a Greek Waiter,
Yes, Yanni Schwartz, Portrait of a Greek Waiter, my first feature.
which I loved. I thought, oh, I want to work with that guy.
Mm-hmm. Who turned out to be location and unit manager on My American Cousin, AKA the man who knew too much.
Yes, the man
Right?
who knew too much.
Attorney. I don't know.
Yeah, we'd say, Nico, can we buy this street? Have we bought this street? Can you turn on all the lights? Who cares if it's 2 o'clock in the morning? And Nico would make a phone call, and all the motel lights would come on Lakeshore Drive.
Magic.
It It was wonderful. Nico, we want Munson's Mountain. Okay, I'll get it.
Let's go to Munson's Mountain.
It's so nice up here.
And even the car. Remember the car?
The Cadillac?
No, your uncle's car.
Uh,
We called it the Greek Mobile.
Oh, the Greek Mobile, yes, yeah.
We needed a car to take us. Were you the driver?
Yeah, we went every morning to set with Ed Folger in the front and you and Richard, right?
So Nico would be driving, Ed Folger's in the front seat, and then Richard Lightham, the cinematographer, and I are in the back. I remember driving out to set on the first day, and Richard Lightham said, "Sandy, do you have a shot list?" And I said, "Well, no, I've heard a lot about this thing, shot list, but I have no idea what it is or how you get one." And everybody in the car went really quiet. And I thought, oh, gee, I'm in big trouble. And Richard Lightham sort of went like this. And I said, but I do have some storyboards. And so Richard said, okay, let's take a look at the storyboards. So I hauled them out, and he flipped through, and then he said, okay, this is a 2-shot, this is a close-up, and here's your establishing. I said, easy peasy, once you know. So then, of course, Peter the producer, every morning would say, do you have your shot list? Do you have your shot list? I go, yeah, 2 close-ups, a medium and an establishing. Back off.
Sounding very pro.
Yeah,
Off. What more do you need, really?
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And whatever I suggested, usually I'd say, okay, Richard, I'm thinking maybe, if we start here, we'll do this. And he'd look. And then he'd go, well, I think we should, and it would be the exact opposite. And I go, oh my God. Okay, so there was a lot of wheeling and dealing.
It's kind of a fine line between sort of you going from like documentary history, right, into fiction.
Yeah.
We're kind of just recording what is into staging it.
Okay, Margaret, action.
The first day was very scattered, and I didn't know what I was doing or anything like that.
I love how on the first day, the story of, like the first shot of the first day, when the car comes around the corner and into the orchard, and you yelled action, but you never yelled cut.
Oh yeah,
I love that you were lost in it.
that happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that first morning when I drove out to set an orchard with all the stuff, I flipped right back to the 50s, and I was there, and it was like it wasn't a movie set, it was the real deal. And I thought, what's the big deal? Of course that's what it should
This
look
is
like.
just life unfolding.
Yeah.
And you're just at the monitor watching a movie. Why should you cut?
What monitor?
Oh, you didn't have monitor.
Pre-monitor days.
No, we had Polaroids.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Polaroids was the big advancement. Yeah.
Continuity, yeah.
Yeah, no, I lost it a couple of times and forgot I was actually on a film set.
Can I take your picture?
Sure.
Oh, goodness. Okay, that's great. All right. Wow.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration for My American Cousin?
I grew up at Paradise Ranch.
Yes.
And right next to Paradise Ranch, I now have a little cabin. Bought a little piece of property right just south of Paradise
Right next
Ranch.
to where, because I was there, you invited us, we
Yes.
had tea.
Yeah.
And it's charming.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty low key.
Yes.
So I was there with Phil Schmidt and our son, Will, who was about, 3 or so, and heard the song on the radio, Johnny Horton singing The Battle of New Orleans. Well, they ran through the brambles and they ran through the briars and they ran through the bushes where the rabbit couldn't go. Ran so fast that the British couldn't catch him, down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. And every time that song would come on in the summer of 1959, my dad, with his English background, would say, turn that damn noise off. And I thought, what is he so excited about? And that was the summer that Butch came up, my real American cousin. And I said to Phil, "Gee, you know, this song reminds me of my American cousin." And when he came up and that song was a hit on the radio and Dad would make him turn it off. And we both kind of looked at each other and thought, that's a good title, that's a good movie. So I took out my lipstick, my red lipstick, and wrote on the window in big letters, "My American cousin," and started writing. So that's where that came from.
Amazing. What an impact it's had, you know.
Isn't it
Oh,
crazy?
it's just, well, and us as relatively new filmmakers moving to the region, you know, you're a legend. You both are. You know, you're
And
you
we're
are.
still alive.
And you're still going, and you're still creating, you're still making stuff, and I want to hear, and so many of us, I think, want to hear some more My American Cousin stories.
Well, we had a lot of fun casting the extras. I wanted to shoot it 16 millimeter documentary style, totally all local actors.
Living in tents. I remember I recall in our original budget, it was like renting tents
Yeah, we were going to put the crew in
the
tents.
crew, yeah. The budget went up from there
I
afterwards.
think we were going to
luckily.
have 8 people on the crew or something like
Yeah,
that. It was
very,
just,
very small.
and yeah, we didn't really have money.
Right. It was like a big 60 millimeter project.
We were going to do the 16 millimeter,
Yep. But you
And-
ended up shooting on what?
35 millimeter. That was Peter O'Brien's decision.
Right.
I burst into tears. I don't want to shoot 35 because it became a lot more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you get a bigger budget, you've got a whole lot more people
And pressure.
telling you you have to get insurance, you have to go union, you'll have to get a producer from Toronto or Montreal. And all of a sudden I could feel the whole thing slipping out of my control. And the other thing I remember about the pre-production, like before we got the money and everything, Theos became the unofficial production office.
It's true, yes.
We set up
Theos has been so many things.
Theos has
I
and
don't-
continues to be.
If something didn't happen at Theos, did it really happen? Like, something wasn't created at Theos, did it
Well, it was
actually
ve-
get
it was very
created?
very convenient for us to just meet there, have lunch, and make plans, right? And just
Of
sit there
course.
for a couple hours or more and have everything go through there.
But it really Theos has been for 50, how many years?
I think 45.
45
47.
years, the center. I mean, it's been the town hall of, you know, South Okanagan, and it and held so many creative people and supported so many creative people. We are definitely beneficiaries of the generosity and support of Theos and you and your family.
It's been fun.
It has been fun, and it just doesn't end.
Yeah. Well, that's where, and like I said, that's where we met on table 6 when your sister Noni was working there.
Yeah, my sister Noni was working there. But it goes back even further than that, because when I was a short order cook at the Prince Charles Motor Inn, your dad was working at the lounge.
It's right in the lounge at Prince Charles.
I was about, 13, 14, somewhere in there. And I remember one day somebody said, "Oh, deliver this to the lounge." And one of the women in the kitchen said, "Oh, she's not allowed in the lounge. No, she's underage." I said, "What? It's the middle of the morning. There's like only the bartender there kind of cleaning up. She can go in." "No, she can't." And then, so I said, "Oh, let me go in." I was dying to see what was going on in the lounge that was so secretive and everything. And there was Theo,
Right.
handsome guy, bartender. So anyway, that's where I met Theo.
And how did you become interested in directing?
Kind of totally by chance, really. I was a student at Simon Fraser University. I was taking English and history, and I had a job, part-time job, as a switchboard operator at the university there. And one of the tour guides came through, and she said, "Oh, Sandy, there are some cute guys in a film class." So I thought, "Oh, sounds good. I think I'll sign up." So I dropped my dance class and signed up for film. Mad keen to get in there. But the guys weren't all that interested in working with me. And so I came up here to the Okanagan and shot some footage of my sister Noni out there at Paradise Ranch. And when we looked at, and that was on 8mm, and when that was screened, all our stuff would be screened at the same time. And Stan Fox said, you know, the footage, there's my sister Noni on the screen. I was like, oh my God, that looks like a real movie, you know? And Stan Fox said, whoever shot this has a good eye. And I was hooked. I thought, oh, I'm gonna do this some more. So I did it some more. And then Stan Fox brought us together and said, we have an opportunity here at the Simon Fraser Film Workshop to do a documentary on a small town in the interior. Anybody interested? And we were all interested. Talk some more, well, you know, who's gonna do what and how many days, and are we gonna shoot 16mm and all that kind of stuff. And then somebody said, well, what town? And Stan Fox said Penticton. And I went, Penticton? That's my town. And he said, okay, you be the director. And I thought, I have no idea what a director's supposed to do, but I said, sure. And all the guys were kind of mad because, you know, they wanted to be director person.
Course.
So they didn't really listen to me or anything like that. And I didn't know what you were supposed to do anyway. So we came up here, we had a ton of fun. One guy just shot all the motel signs, another guy just shot the girls on the beach. Stan Fox made sure that I interviewed the principal at the high school and the mayor and the hippies and stuff like that. And then nobody wanted to edit it because it was a big fat mess. And so Stan Fox said, well, Sandy, do you want to edit it? And I said, I'd love to. And that's really where I found out what a director's supposed to do.
In the editing room.
In the editing room. Yeah,
Makes sense.
you're supposed to have an idea of what the finished film is going to look like, and then go out and get your footage, and then see what the footage is. It may not be what you were aiming for,
Yes.
and then try to make that into a film.
So, Nico, your history with filmmaking. So you were unit and location manager for My American Cousin. What was before and what was after?
Before that, I was, I think since about 1980, I was interested in photography quite a lot. And in 1982, I went to Greece for 6 months with my cameras, but also with a Beta Cam, or Beta Max, which my dad had just purchased. And at that time, video cameras were quite, you know, rare, right? And so in Greece, in the villages, it was quite a big deal to be videotaping people. And so for 6 months, I had a lot of fun filming relatives, you know, in terms of their cooking and their dancing and telling stories. And started recording musicians, and just had a really, I discovered that in video there was this added depth of motion and time, you know, which photography didn't give. And so you could direct how long you wanted the viewers to pay attention to something. So when I came back, you see his hand?
No.
You see his hand? Okay, first time. Go ahead, Scott. One more time. Okay, we'll try it again from the top. Sorry. So when I came back from Greece, I really wanted to get into filmmaking in 1982, and so I started hanging out at Shaw Cable here in town, which at that time was a really fantastic facility that had cameras and editing equipment and lights and microphones, and they recorded programs inside the studio, so it was a great place to learn as a kid. And I had this idea to start making these short films with equipment from Shaw Cable, and eventually shot a feature called Yanni Schwartz, Portrait of a Greek Waiter, which we shot with friends and, you know, more friends, at Theo's, of course, and around town. And we found out later it was the first full-length feature done at a community cable station in Canada.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
At the time, we were just kind of experimenting and playing, and you know, with acting and writing. But as it turned out, I got a grant by going to the Film Society meetings, and I'm winning a script competition. So I got $1,000 worth of free film from Alpha Cine. So we shot a 16mm film at UBC illegally, and anyway, so at that point, Sandy called and said, "I think we're going to have the shoot if you want to be part of it." And so I said, okay, I'll stop doing my UBC Film Society meetings, and came back to the Okanagan and started the prep of working with the city to decide which roads to close down, and working with the vintage car clubs to arrange for cars, working with the high school to do casting with the kids and dance instruction, rounding up hairdressers who knew how to cut hair like from the 50s, were still alive. and just started putting all the pre-production. It was a great, education, like, from 0 to 100 about how to make a film with all the last-minute changes and low budget and excitement that is, as you know, is filmmaking, right? Yeah.
And the call sheet.
The call sheets.
Didn't you
there was
every
like
morning put a little cartoon or a little something on
I
the
thought
call
I'd
sheet?
sparkled it up a bit with a little comic strip. Oh yes, with Nikos Theodosakis, unit manager. Right. Yeah. What a great introduction to filmmaking, and then that just worked with Sandy through the whole film, and then in post-production, hung out, and then organized a screening here in the Okanagan when the film was ready to screen.
And screen it did, and won many, many awards. That must have been, what was that like?
Amazing. At the Toronto International Film Festival, we were the opening film. For the first time, they had a Canadian Images, a whole series showing Canadian films. It was a big deal and absolutely nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
So, and I remember sitting in the chair, and that expression, she broke out in a cold sweat. And I thought, I now know what a cold sweat is. And I just remember studying the weave on the seat in the theater. I was a mess. And it was a small theater, and the crowd seemed so serious. They didn't kind of like just roll with it and laugh a lot. They'd laugh, and then they'd be quiet again. Listen, laugh and quiet. And I thought, gee, this is crazy audience. And then after it was over, lots of applause, and then everybody took off.
To go to the next film.
To go to the next film. And it was really the first film festival that I had attended, so I had no idea what the heck went on. And was, did they like it? What just happened? Like that. And then the night of the Genies, which was amazing because we had half the crew there, because we had 12 nominations. So we had 12 people from the crew and their friends and everybody.
And then shortly thereafter, at Theo's one afternoon, and the door opens and Sandy walks in with 2 genies, one in each hand, puts them down on a table, we sit down and have a glass of ouzo.
So what genies did you get?
Best director, best writer, and I should have got one for best producer as well, because I'm a producer on My American Cousin along with Peter O'Brien. But the Academy told me that if I wanted a genie, I'd have to, for the producing credit, I'd have to pay the $500 for it. I thought, you cheesy cheaps. But, so anyway, I got the 2 genies.
Well, not too bad.
And I felt like I owed it to the whole town of Penticton, I was packing them around. We had a wonderful screening. Now that screening was a lot of fun, but we had the screening here in Penticton.
We again had a parade with vintage cars, and a lot of the cast and crew got together and had a opening at the Penmar Cinema, and we were able to screen it for the local community and do some presentations, of course, and just acknowledge the whole fact that there was really a lot of people in the community that supported the making of it, right?
And so producing-wise, after that, Nico, here in the Okanagan, what did you produce?
Well, actually, Sandy's next film, American Boyfriends, I was one of the producers on that.
Yes?
I worked with Steve Denier, who was the producer. And Sandy invited me to come work on the film, and so most of the film, which was a sequel to My American Cousin, and took place in 1965, I think, was shot in Vancouver and Santa Cruz, California.
Right.
So we also shot the last sequence here in the Okanagan, and also the
opening
sequence.
Too.
Yeah, the opening sequence was fun because before it was an official film, Sandy just called me up one day and said, look, we've got one weekend, we want to come and shoot 3 of us, a camera assistant, and Margaret the actress, and just arrange everything. And then 48 hours later, we're shooting a scene with 3 people, which ended up in the film.
Action.
Wow.
Yeah, and Linda helped out, hair, makeup.
Absolutely everything.
Remember looking for the bobby pins and safety pins.
Linda, Nico's wife.
Yes. Yeah.
Whatever it takes, right? That's kind of
Oh, yeah,
the beauty of independent filmmaking is that, you just do what has to get done.
The only time I've ever been in a fight in my life I was fighting over a can of film.
A can of film?
It was we had hired we went to Santa Cruz, California to shoot, and then the first day we arrived in Santa Cruz. And the day before the first morning of shooting, our unit manager that we had hired, he got very upset that a case of wine was given to us, to the production, and that he didn't get any. And at this point, we were in the production office, and Sandy and the rest of the crew were at the restaurant having dinner, and I was on my way to join them. And he had me by my collars, and I had him by his collars, and he was yelling at me to have the wine, to get this wine. And then it kind of got progressively worse, and luckily someone came by into the room from the staff and broke us up. I thought to myself, all these years of working in the restaurant and working in a nightclub and to be in a fight and over a bottle of wine from a, anyways. And then, but what happened was we were concerned that he was going to sabotage the production. And so when I went to bed at night, I had the film cans with me in my bed with Linda. Because there was fear, and so then we would drive it out in the morning to the airport to San Diego with me.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Thank you
dears.
so much.
Cheers, cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, Nico. Oh, the stories we could tell.